Hey everyone, Jason Shepard here, MzeroA.com. Today we're talking about the secret to perfect landings. I'm so thankful you took some time out of your busy day to really find ways to better yourself as a pilot. You know, landings aren't just something that we impress our passengers with or whoever we're flying with, right? Landings, if you look at the latest NOL report, make up the majority of our accidents. They're landing accidents. Now, landing accidents, thankfully, don't have a very high fatality rate. We're talking off-runway excursions, whatever it may be, but it's so crucial. I remember when I was sitting in DPE school in Oklahoma City, they literally said, if that applicant cannot put it down on the center line, that's grounds for failure right there. We have to land on center line. That's what we're striving for. So today, I'm going to share with you the secret to perfect landings. Before we do that, I realize a lot of you may not know who I am or who MzeroA.com really is. So that's what we'll share with you also. A little bit about myself, about MzeroA.com, and really what we do. That's myself, our beautiful family there. We're a true mom and pop business. My wife Ashley works in the business with us. Gavin and Ella come to work with us each and every day on top of 10 other just amazing team members here that make up MzeroA.com. Our primary business is an online ground school. Private, instrument, commercial, almost done with CFI. I have fundamentals of instruction done. Everything's up to the newest, the latest, the greatest ACS guidelines now, and all that is in there for you. And that's our primary business, is working with you all to not only help you pass a knowledge test, not only help you pass a check ride, but most importantly, make you a safe, real-world pilot. And that's what we're really after here. I'll never teach you just how to pass a test or pass a check ride, pass a knowledge test or written test. I'll teach you how to be a safe real-world pilot, and because of that, you'll pass that test. On top of the online ground school, we're up to quite a few books now. Some of the new ones here: pass your private pilot check ride, pass your instrument pilot check ride. I sat in on hundreds of check rides, wrote down every single question they asked, then provide those correct answers there for you. Our movie in the bottom left-hand corner, Flying Again. We worked with 8 rusty pilots on their journey, not just to currency, but back to proficiency. So a project we're very passionate about as well, working with rusty pilots and re-engaging that pilot population. So through all that, and because of amazing friends like yourself, MzeroA.com this year was named number 230 on the Inc. 500 list of America's fastest growing companies. 230! Just very, very blessed and very, very thankful for that, and that is truly because of you. So let's dive into the content now, and I want to start by asking you a question, and really post in the comment box below the answers to these so this can be interactive as well. But I have a question for you. What makes a great landing? What makes a great landing? How do you know you've had an amazing landing, right? What makes a great landing? And some people always say the joke, a good landing is any landing you can walk away from. Okay, and use the airplane again if you want to take that a step further, right? That's just an old aviation joke. But truthfully, what makes a great landing? Is it when you come in and the wheels, you're coming into land and the wheels just kind of chirp. And you're like, oh man, that was good. It was the kind of landing where you come in and I had a student who was just, he still is to this day, a very, very good pilot. But he knew he was a very good pilot. And he used to always crack jokes. We'd come in and we'd land and we'd be rolling out and he'd say, oh, Jason, I didn't even realize we touched down yet. That was his way of saying, hey, that was a pretty good landing, Jason. I don't give many compliments. When I give a compliment, it feels really good because there's very few of them given in flight training. So he was always fishing for a compliment. So what makes that great landing? You say, I need to focus on things like managing my airspeed. I need to fly that great traffic pattern. I need to be the only person in the traffic. Whatever it may be, what helps you make that a great landing? So let me follow that up now with another question here. If we know what makes a great landing, what makes landings then so difficult? If I just told you, you just gave yourself, reading the comments in this, you can see, oh, a great landing, I need to nail my airspeed. I need to, approach, probably have a stabilized approach, not too high, not too low, everything's great, flaps right where I need them. You've given me all the ingredients for what makes a great landing, then what makes landings so difficult? Maybe it's the variables. Maybe it's all the circumstances here. The wind's from here. There's 4 in the pattern now. There's obstacle at the end of this runway. The runway is wet. Whatever it may be. I'm in a different airplane, high wing, low wing, whatever it may be, right? There's all these variables. And how do we continue to prepare for those different variables? I want to share with you a quick story leading into this, and some of you will be surprised to hear this story, but I remember back in literally my earliest beginnings of training. I was a 16-year-old kid. I was flying a Piper Cherokee 140, and I had just very little time. And I was one of those students, it's very ironic, I was one of those students who I could fly the heck out of that airplane, but I didn't care a whole lot about the bookwork. How ironic. What do I do for a living now? I do FAA test prep, right? I mean, that's our living now. What a change of events. But at that time, I didn't spend a lot of time in the books. I just wanted to fly. And my instructor, she said to me, Jason, if you can land, now at Ocala, we have 1836, which is a huge runway. And then we have 826 with a little 50-foot wide, maybe 4,000 foot long runway, but it was the width that was so scary coming on this runway. She said, if you can put it down on runway, 26 here, I'll solo you. No problem. This is great. Ocala was still a pilot-controlled, uncontrolled airport at that time, and we're going around, and we're coming, and I'm on base. I'm a little fast. I'm watching this runway, and we're going in, and I'm adding my flaps. I remember Cherokee 140, the old manual flaps. They're coming on in. I turn final, and I just overbank, and I'm way left of final, and then I'm way right of final, and I'm just all over the place. I have these weird oscillations going back and forth. I have not been on final yet. I passed through the center line, but I haven't been on center line yet. And finally, we're getting so low. We're down 100 feet. We're down 50 feet. I'm so far left of the runway. She looks at me and says, Jason, what are you going to do? And in my head, I'm thinking, but you said I could solo if I landed this time. I was so committed, but I wasn't anywhere close to that runway. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to go around. And she says, go ahead and do it. Go around. Great decision. And what is the first thing I do? I grab those manual flaps, and I take out all those flaps at once. What happens, do you think, when you take out all of your flaps at once in any aircraft for that matter, but a Cherokee 140 with manual flaps is easy to do it. Well, that 50 feet we had became 25, became right into the ground. And right into the ground sounds a little more graphic. It was a very hard landing in the grass left of the runway. The words that came out of my instructor's mouth cannot be repeated here tonight, but we hit that ground so hard. Now, my first soft field landing was at least somewhat uneventful. My instructor hopped on the yoke, pulled that all the way back, gave it some power actually to kind of keep us going here, popped us up on the taxiway, and I remember taxiing back. My hands were on my lap, and they were just shaking. I didn't know. I mean, I kind of knew what happened, but I didn't totally understand what happened. I'd never really read the books much on how to do a proper go-around. I knew what a go-around was. I just thought it would just happen. I didn't expect that to happen because I wasn't, that student that I needed to really be. And on that taxi back, my instructor said something to me. She didn't even look at me, just still looking straight ahead, as I was looking straight ahead. We didn't make eye contact. And she says over the intercom, Jason, maybe you're not meant to be a pilot. And I remember that, and I'm thinking, what on earth? Like, what can I do? What happened here? Maybe she's right. Maybe I shouldn't be a pilot. And I literally thought about throwing in the towel. And how many of you on this, watching this video right now, have considered at one point, or maybe my story is your story right now in the present. You're thinking, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe not everybody's meant to fly. Whatever it may be, maybe that's your story. Allow me to offer you some encouragement. Because I went home and had some, cried, all range of emotions, right? I thought this was going to be my career, and I can't even land an airplane at this point. So I realized where I was deficient. And it was, I didn't want to pick up those books. I just wanted to fly. So instead, I changed my tune and I became a student of landings. I began to study everything I could. We didn't have YouTube or anything like that back then. We just had paperback books, and I read everything I could about landings. I had to become a student of landings. And in my studies, I discovered really two things. Two things that held me back from making perfect landings. Now, if you're a note taker, you're going to want to write this down, take a screenshot of it, whatever it may be. But two things, very profound, and allow me to explain each of them. Let's start with the first one. A perfect landing starts with a perfect pattern. Let me say it again. A perfect landing starts with a perfect pattern. Now, hear me out on this. What do I mean? I'm looking for that great rectangle. Upwind, crosswind, downwind, base, final. A perfect pattern isn't trapezoids. We have to fly that perfect rectangle. It's no shortcuts, right? It's no, I'll turn my crosswind early here. I'll just fly my downwind this way now. It's a perfect landing starts with a perfect pattern. Let me give you a sports analogy. For those of you who watch basketball, let's say, watch any professional, any college player, any basketball player playing at a very high level. When they approach the free throw line, the foul line, they approach that line, the ball gets thrown to them, and they do the same thing every time. Whatever their routine is, they bounce the ball twice, they spin it once in their hand, they bend their knees, and they shoot. Whatever it may be. It's the same thing every single time. To make it the same foul shot every single time. How can you expect a perfect landing when your pattern is different every time? This landing is different than the last one you just did. You're at the same airport with the same wind conditions and the same airplane. But because you're wide this time on downwind, you're too close this time, you're too fast, or you're too slow, you're too high, you're too low, you're looking at a different scenario every time. Here you are thinking, I'm just trying to land, right? But in reality, you're trying to land in all these various conditions, and you're trying to do it all at once. You're trying to learn, when you're fast, you're trying to learn when you're too high, you're trying to learn when you're too low, when you're too slow, and every time it's different. Focus on that perfect pattern first here, and allow me to kind of show you what I mean here. When I say rectangular course, by the way, is one of the most neglected maneuvers that gets practiced in the ground reference maneuver arena of things. When we're coming into rectangular course, the reason we practice it is to teach us, to educate us about wind correction angle and its relation to us in the traffic pattern. If I am like this aircraft right now, and I have the wind behind me, I'm on downwind in this case, I need to go ahead and make my turn. But you got to think, the wind's pushing me through. I'd want to turn a little bit earlier, in this case on crosswind, and look at the nose, how I have an angle crabbing into the wind. Now, as I turn into a headwind, the upwind in this case, I don't have any wind correction angle. See, the focus is I want the same track across the ground. My nose may not always be pointing in that direction that I'm heading, but my track across the ground is the same. And that's what we're really focusing on here. That wind correction angle, that crab angle, to fly that perfect rectangle, that same rectangle each and every time. That's what we're truly focusing on here. So you always wondered, why do we do ground reference maneuvers? It's to fly those better, those perfect traffic patterns. There's so many maneuvers. We're going to talk about slow flight. We're going to talk about ground reference maneuvers tonight, which are two flight maneuvers that we oftentimes really neglect in this case. So I want you to chair fly with me here. I want to allow you to visualize what that perfect traffic pattern is here. Let me grab my chair so we can make this accurate chair flying here. Chair fly this with me. Now, I love chair flying. If you've ever been to any air show, you'll see the Blue Angels. They literally walk on the ramp in formation. They chair fly. Everything they do, they say the same things. They put their hands in the same spots, whatever it may be here. Chair fly this with me now. Chair fly that takeoff, all right? We're coming on out here, and we smoothly apply some full power. And we're continuing to roll down that runway. And as we roll down that runway here, our heels hit the floor. Our toes go to the bottom of the pedals. We continue to keep going on forward here. We continue to roll down that runway. We verify airspeed is coming alive. And we watch that airspeed. We get a heavier right foot as that propeller factor tries to pull us on over here. We're kind of going through in that direction, and then we rotate. And as we rotate, we come on up, and this is where we can oftentimes lose it because we need to look back and go, am I flying that runway straight on out? You have to think about. And oftentimes we're not, right? We end up drifting to the left, drifting to the right, whatever it may be. We have to focus on flying that runway straight on out. Now, as we're flying straight on out here, and again, hopefully you're visualizing this with me. Your hands are just like they would as if you were really flying. You're holding that throttle in all the way in, because if you have an airplane like mine, the friction lock doesn't work that well, and that throttle will sneak out. So your hand's still there, right, as you're flying this thing on through. And then we get to about 700 feet AGL. We make our radio call, and we go ahead and we turn left crosswind, let's say. Let's say we're at a pilot-controlled airport. We turn left crosswind, all while still climbing on through. We're on that left crosswind, we're climbing through. I'm kind of looking over my left shoulder to making sure I'm really a true 90-degree angle off of my runway. When I get to about 50 feet from traffic pattern altitude, I smoothly start to bring that throttle back just a little bit here as I turn downwind, as I make a radio call. We always say turn, talk, throttle, right? The three T's like that. I can turn, I can talk on the radios, and I can bring that throttle back. And when you're good, you can do all that at the same time. Multitasking is so important as a pilot. Now I'm on the downwind in this case. And it's so easy on the downwind to let that airplane get away from you. Remember, you already have a tailwind. Don't let that airplane get away from you here, right? So that throttle maybe even further back than a cruise RPM say. Maybe a cruise at 2,200 RPMs. Maybe in the pattern you're at 19 or 20, somewhere in that range. And now on the downwind, on the left downwind, I'm looking out my left side. And I'm noticing, am I too close to the runway? Am I too far from the runway? I'm also asking myself the question, am I creeping in on that runway? Meaning, do I have, I'm flying this way, but do I have drift that's taking me either direction? Do I need to have a crab angle? Because I'm concerned, like we saw in the animation, about my track across the ground. Not so much where my nose is, right? It's my track across the ground in the traffic pattern like that. So I'm continuing on across here. I'm flying that. I'm managing my airspeed. A theme you're going to hear time and time again is this philosophy that airspeed is king. From not just on final, like the picture you see here, but throughout the entire traffic pattern. What airspeed do you want to be on downwind? For me, at a midfield downwind, I want to be about 90. Again, I'm flying an older 172, 2.3 Mike Zulu. You've seen it in some of the videos, whatever it may be for you. But let's keep chair flying here. I'm holding 90. I've trimmed for 90. Please don't forget about trim. I'm flying this thing with 2 fingers now. I've got everything. I got the friction lock locked in. Everything's looking great right now. Then I get a beam, my touchdown point. I'm flying this way. It's a beam. It's 90 degrees off of me, right? Let's call it the runway numbers. I go ahead and I have a procedure. Because if a perfect landing starts with a perfect pattern, I need to have a procedure to follow. A beam, my touchdown point for myself and my airplane. Carb heat, power back, 10 degrees of flaps. Carb heat, when I say power back, I'm going from 21, 20, 19 to maybe a run-up RPM, 16, 1700 or so. Carb heat, a little bit of power back, 10 degrees of flaps. What is the tendency when you add flaps in? Where's the nose want to go, right? The nose wants to come up on you. So you need to be anticipating that and be ready to push that nose forward. Make sure you're started a descent. A common error is to get a beam, thinking you're starting your descent, but in reality the flaps bumped you up a little bit. Next thing you know, you're at your 45-degree point and you're still at 1,000 feet AGL. You have to start that descent. And I'm starting that descent down, and now I'm waiting for my 45-degree point. 45 degrees off my back shoulder, that same spot, my touchdown, goal of where I'm hoping to touch down or where I will touch down. I had a procedure when I was a beam it. I now have a procedure when it's 45 degrees off my shoulder, 45-degree point back there. And then from there, my procedure there is that is where I turn base. I turn my base. I make my radio call. Now, another common error is just because you brought the throttle back once doesn't mean you can't bring it back again or give it some more power, whatever you need. You're constantly making little micro adjustments on that throttle. On base, I'm adding in my next notch of flaps if I need it. On a gusty day, I don't use all those flaps. I never add flaps in a turn, by the way. That's very controversial sometimes, and we can get into a very advanced aerodynamics lesson beyond the scope of this, but I never add flaps in a turn. It's just not me, okay? I don't like the, different aerodynamic loadings, everything else. Again, longer discussion. On base, I'm slowing down. If I was 90 on downwind, I want to be 80 on base. I'm slowing down. I'm kind of watching that runway come up because I want to time my turn. And this is what rectangular course teaches us so well is timing that turn. Remember where the wind is coming from. Timing that turn to roll out on final perfectly. You don't want to be one of these, let's say your final right here. You don't want to be one of these or you overshoot, so you just bank, 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 and try to save it. You don't ever try to save it. When you're low, slow, and you're doing one of these, that has spin written all over it here. I would, if anything, I'd rather just see you kind of baby your way around and round the corner for all it matters to me, as long as you end up on final. But when you get good, you can have a nice standard rate turn timed all the way right on around until you're on final. And now, on final, it's so important to be asking ourselves that important question here. Ask myself, am I too high? Am I too low? Am I right on glide path? Am I too high? Am I too low? Am I right on glide path? And what do we do to adjust that? If I'm too high, what do I do? I'm going to bring a little power back. The answer isn't lower the nose. If you answered, I'm a little bit high, what do I do? Lower the nose? What happens when you lower the nose? And don't adjust the power? I'm just going to pick up a ton of airspeed is all I'm going to do. What happens if I'm too low and I go, I got to pick the nose up? Well, I'm low and I'm slow. I'm doing one of these now, right? You follow me with that? Adjust the power. If I'm too high, keep that same profile, just bring some power back. That'll add to the sink like that. We're not, in aircraft, we don't get down by just nosing it down. That's one way to do it, but you pick up a lot of airspeed. In aircraft, we maintain the same pitch attitude, but bring the power back to descend this way, not this way. You follow me with that? So am I too high? Am I too low? Am I right on glide path? Now, how we determine that is by picking a point on the runway here. And look at this image real quick with me here. Let's stay on this image here for just a second. We're landing, looks like 8 right in this case. We're going to put it right down on the 8, let's say, on the 0-8. So I could draw a circle around that. If I came over here and I drew a circle around this 0-8, and all of a sudden that circle started tracking up my screen, what's happening? I'm too low, right? Because it's sneaking up there. What happens if I start losing that 8 up underneath my cowling? All of a sudden I can't see it anymore. I'm too high. I should be able to fly. I should be able to draw a circle on my windshield and keep that runway number, that center, whatever I'm aiming for, in there the entire time. That is the goal. That is what I'm truly after in this case. A perfect landing starts with a perfect pattern. Now you say, Jason, I can fly a perfect pattern. It's no big deal. Okay, I believe that. Let's now move to the most important step, and the most important step is this. Note takers, write this down. We have to ditch the word flare from your vocabulary. Ditch the word flare from your vocabulary. Allow me to explain why. When you think of the word flare, what do you think of? I think of a 737 or something big coming into land. And normally I have one sitting around here somewhere. It might be buried under a bunch of stuff. I think of something big, though, coming into land, right? And I think they flare like this. 172 doesn't flare. Now, I'm not saying we have a three-point landing. Certainly the mains touch before the nose does, 100%, right? But it's not a flare in this case. You ever look on trainer aircraft, you look at the tail tie-down hook, oftentimes it's flat on the bottom because some of the students flared so much they hit the tail in this case. You never want to put yourself in a position where you pull the nose back so much that you lose sight of the runway. So instead of flare, I teach the word transition. Transition down the road. That's an image from a recent flight, a video that will be coming out here soon. My nose, I'm going to touch mains down first, followed by the nose in that case. But I'm transitioning. I transition to what? Instead, I transition to basically slow flight down the runway almost and hold it until we kiss the earth. You see, the reason we practice slow flight is to get good at landings. When you can master slow flight, you can become amazing at landings in this case. So I want to take a step back here, and we just recently filmed this week a lap in the traffic pattern, and I want to take everything we just learned here, and I want to take you for a lap in the traffic pattern with me. So let's sit back, let's head over to old 23 Mike Zulu at the Williston Airport, and let's take a lap in the traffic pattern.
All right, so you've heard me say a perfect landing starts with a perfect pattern. Let me take you for a lap in the pattern, and let me show you that real quick here. And Williston traffic, 23 Mike Zulu's departing runway 23, staying in the pattern, Williston. Double checking final, everything's good. Lights, camera, action, everything is set. Runway looks clear, final looks clear, using every bit of runway here. Bringing us on out. Everything's set. 2-3 outside, 2-3 on the compass, smoothly applying full power. Noticing that P factor kicks in right away, the torque factor in that case. Rolling on down. Nice and light, airplane wants to fly already. P factor kind of takes over there. A little bit more right rudder pressure, adjusting trim. Just because you set it during the run-up doesn't mean it's always going to be correct for every instance. So adjusting trim in that case. And I can still see the runway. I'm flying straight on out here. I don't want to look out my right side, look out my left side and see that runway. I can still see that runway set out. I can see I'm holding heading 23 on my heading indicator. I've got a good point of reference in front of me now that I've lost sight of the runway, that I can continue to fly straight on out. And you know what? It would behoove you, it would benefit you to take a look back sometimes. Make sure you can still see that runway straight back behind you as well here. So continuing to fly on out. When I get to 700 feet, I'm going to go ahead and turn my left crosswind here in just a second. Here comes 700 feet. I'll wait till he's done talking here. And Williston traffic, 23 Mike Zulu's turning a left crosswind, runway 23, Williston traffic. Turning that left crosswind, hand back on the throttle. Turn on through now, nice and light, so I'm making my traffic pattern altitude a little bit earlier here, anticipating that and bringing some power back. A lot of power back, if you notice, too. I'm just barely outside the green arc even, 2,000 RPMs. I'm light today with just me on board and about half tanks. So downwind looks clear. A good distance, I'm flying, you know, perpendicular to my landing runway, and I'm turning downwind now, pushing that nose forward through that turn. Williston traffic, 23 Mike Zulu's turning left downwind, runway 23, full stop, Williston traffic. Turning downwind, and this now we're spoiled today because the winds are calm. But I'm asking myself, you know, do I have a little crosswind? Is it going to push me towards that runway? Is it going to pull me away from that runway? I want to really make sure I nail my speeds here and everything else. I'm holding everything. I have the tiniest little bit of tailwind, but if you're taking off in a stronger wind, you're going to have more wind in that case. I am just back on this a little bit. I don't have as much power as you would think, and I've got the airplane trimmed up real nice here on the downwind. I can fly hands-free if I wanted to. We're coming on through. Everything's just looking great as we're flying on through. On the downwind, midfield downwind now, ask myself, am I creeping in towards that runway? Am I creeping away towards it, or am I just right at this point? Everything else looks set. Coming up, I'm going to shoot for the numbers 2-3 is where I'd like to actually touch down here. So here I come, beam my touchdown point, carburetor heat comes on, power comes back, just a little bit, about 1500 to 1500 RPMs, and 10 degrees of flaps. Pushing that nose forward. The tendency when you add flaps is for that nose to come up. So I'm pushing that nose forward, all while maintaining that proper airspeed. It's much easier to get down than it is to gain altitude in this case here too. So I'm just kind of flying on out. Now I'm waiting for my 45-degree point from here. 45 degrees off my touchdown point is when I'm going to go ahead and turn my left base in this case, which I'm about ready to do. I'll make a radio call now. Williston traffic, 23 Mike Zulu's turning left base, runway 23, full stop, Williston. I'm turning my
traffic,
base.
83 Echo Charlie's departing, 23 to the south, Williston traffic.
I got one departing in front of me. And on base, I'm asking myself, am I too high? Am I too low? Am I right on glide path? And I would say, looking at this, I am just the tiniest bit too high. I pitch for airspeed, I power for altitude. My airspeed's great. I'm going to bring a little bit of power back. Another thing is too here, I can add some flaps in as well. I'm going to go ahead and add to 20 degrees of flaps now. I've got one departing, I've got one holding short. I'm mindful of that. I'm watching final to make sure final's clear, mindful of where everybody else is at in the traffic pattern. It's not all about just me flying this pattern. There's other aircraft to worry about. So he's rolling. Hope this other individual is going to continue to hold short here. I'm right on glide path. And how do you answer that question? If I lost my engine right now, would I make that runway? At least would I make airport property? The answer is no, you're too low. We'll go ahead and turn final. Williston traffic, 23 Mike Zulu's turning final, runway 23, full stop, Williston. Once I get wings level.
83 Echo Charlie has departed, runway 23, Williston.
Once I get, I'm continuing to baby power back, by the way. I don't just bring it back to 1500 and forget about it. I baby it back. I'm making a nice kind of rounded turn on through here. And once I get wings level, I'm probably going to go full flaps because if anything, I'm still just a little bit on the high side. So I'll roll out wings level and let's go to a full landing configuration with full flaps in. I am aiming ahead of my touchdown point in this case as well. I'm aiming towards really the line. There's a little taxiway you can see, and I'm aiming towards that line, the start of that end of that runway here. Coming on in, airspeed's looking great, nice and slow coming over airport property, right where I want to be.
The traffic 83 Echo Charlie has departed, runway 23, last call.
Looking good here, aiming ahead of my point. Power's been back to idle for a bit here, holding it off. Holding it off, holding it off. There's 2-3, and we kiss it. Just maybe a hair past 2-3. Little aerodynamic braking. Or really, I don't even need to brake. I can make the first taxi just by coming in at the proper attitude, at the proper airspeed here. So I'm going to go ahead and taxi clear here. Wilson traffic 23 Mike Zulu's taxi and clear 2-3 at Alpha 1. Head back to the FBO, Wilson. And bringing it in here, and there you get to see it. A perfect landing starts with a perfect traffic pattern. Let's strive for that and nail our airspeeds all the way around. So let's go ahead and let's cut back over to the webinar.
So now that you've seen it, do you think you have the skills now to go out and take action on that, to make that perfect landing happen here? Let me share with you now just some of my best landing tips that I have for you all. And really the first one and most important, I believe, is slow flight down the runway. slow flight down the runway to the point where we fly down that runway, and I want you to treat it like a normal landing. Come in, and just before I'm about to touch down, I give it a little power, and I give it a little power, and I hold it, and I hold it right here. Hold those wheels just inches off from kissing that ground. I just hold it there, and I feel that the ailerons aren't really doing anything. I feel how effective the rudder really is. Because when you come into land, that ground effect, that transition phase, you experience it for, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds tops maybe till you meet the earth in this case. Or you flare and you balloon up too much and you come back and you meet the earth that way, right? You never really experience ground effect much. You just blew right through it twice in that case. We've all done one of those, the porpoise kind of landing. So that's why I encourage slow flight down the runway, to hold that off, to practice that the entire time here, to extend that period out, to learn what that airplane feels like. Now, something else to remember. Landings are all about where you put your eyes. Take your eyes down that runway. As you transition the nose up, so you transition your eyes down that runway. When I say down that runway, not just 200, 300, 400 feet, I'm talking look towards the tree line. Whatever it takes, look down, take your eyes down that runway. Use your peripheral vision to keep you on center line, keeping the same distance here, the same distance there, and look down that runway. And remember too, airspeed is king. You have to nail your airspeeds. Maybe you're 90, 80, 70 like I am. 90 downwind, 80 base, 70 final, slow into 65, slow into 60 right above touchdown. 65 over the fence, 60 above the number, whatever it may be. It's going to be different for every aircraft, but you have to know and just nail those airspeeds. Airspeed is king. And lastly, we said a perfect landing starts with a perfect pattern. How can we aim? How can we work on that perfect pattern? That is what we're truly striving for. So listen, from my family to your family, I want to thank you so much for just taking time out of your busy day to find ways to better yourself as pilots. So if my family can do anything, my family, this team here at MzeroA.com can do anything to make you a safer pilot, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we want to do something for you all. I truly believe that in order for us to be successful, we have to help you find success. So if you would like to take a spin of our online ground school for any of those courses I mentioned for free for 2 weeks, visit that URL right there on your screen. Let's leave that URL up for a bit. groundschoolacademy.com/Facebook. groundschoolacademy.com/Facebook to hop on there, make a free account, no strings attached. We're not going to spam you, nothing. You can hop in there, private, instrument, commercial, and I have an FOI course in there as well. Take a free spin of our online ground school. Make sure you absolutely love our course before you spend any money with us, please. So hop in there and let us be an asset to you. Let us help you work towards that written test, that knowledge test, that check ride, or maybe you just want to brush up and work on being that safe, real-world pilot. So let's put that up there one more time. groundschoolacademy.com/Facebook, free 2-week trial. Every Monday night we do a webinar, so it's a live chance to interact with myself and our great team here and our other great members of MzeroA.com and our Ground School Academy. So groundschoolacademy.com/Facebook, just another great way for us to give back to you all. If we want to be successful, we have to help you find success. And for you to find success, we have to give you everything you need to be that safe, smart pilot that you desire. The pilot that takes the family flying on vacation, flies that destination for work, takes maybe it was your father who inspired you to get into aviation and to get him back up flying again. Whatever aviation means to you, I can't wait to hear about it. I can't wait to read your comments in the comment box below this video. We'll be watching it all this week and just over the long weekend. Enjoy the rest of your night, the rest of your day, and most importantly, remember that a good pilot is always learning. Have a great day, guys. We'll see ya.